Good morning, everybody. You're watching Finance and Technology Insights. I'm Eric Bjorndorf.
I'm Brian Williams. Great to be back on the program. We missed a week or and a half or something like that, but good to see you again.
Yeah, we've been off a couple weeks. Glad to be back. A little rusty. We just had a false start, but
that's nothing.
We're back.
We did a lot of our pre-show catch-up before the recording, so we're going to try that. We're going to jump right into mix. For me, most of the content I've taken in the last week and a half has been related to the Middle East. How about you? Is that something you've been into, following, have no interest in?
Yeah, following it as closely as probably appropriate. You know, you don't want to let too much of the news cycle ruin your day.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Or impact your emotions and your emotional well-being too much. I see it with some friends and family that let things, bother them too much about what's going on. I mean, it's a pretty big deal. I have been spending a lot of time watching YouTube history record videos on the history of Palestine and Israel, and trying to figure out what's going on with trying not to form an opinion, but it's hard to not to have an opinion on something.
Right. And I think going back farther and looking long term, the long term history of it can actually be helpful, because that transitions you to more of a educational thing than a emotional and getting into and just realizing this has been going on forever. It probably will go on forever. Although, when you think about the evolution of man and each generation, and you hope that we're making progress, and you hope that each generation is a little bit less violent than the last one. That's always, whenever one of these things happen, for me, it always feels like a giant time machine. It's like, oh, here we go again. It's like we're doing this again. It's so...
Yeah,
it's like Neanderthal, like primitive sort of behavior, and you want to think that you're evolving just as a species or as a different cultures, but it's
and to be clear, I know what you're saying, but to the audience, you're not calling the Israelis and Arabs Neanderthals. You're saying that as a people, right? As a people, right. When can we grow up out of this?
Yeah, big picture, all this, any sort of global conflict or anything like that. That's like, when if your kindergartner comes home and says somebody pushed him in the hallway, and so tomorrow he's going to go back and punch that kid in the face because, we need a strong response. It sounds ridiculous, but it's like all the stuff we always go through, and it's like, and nobody seems to step up and say, what if there wasn't a response? I know it's horrible to say.
I know.
But nobody can ever say that. Like, no country can ever take the high road. Like, that's just not something you can do, especially when politics are involved and it's at the highest level. But man, wouldn't that be cool sometimes? If there was, I understand you have a right to defend yourself and all that kind of stuff.
As if you could say, like, okay, you just got the last hit.
Yeah.
Right. I'm giving you the last hit. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yeah, wouldn't that be great? I mean, you can never do that as a country. I mean,
the problem is, if I can kind of go down this rat hole, is we're just animals, and animals innately fight for territory, and we think that we are outside the animal kingdom, but we're not. We're animals just like all the other animals are. And it's just within us to fight for territory, because territory is limited. We're just biologically engineered that way, because we biologically know that land is limited, food is limited, and it's always survival of the fittest. I mean, that's what biology does. And anybody who kind of turns their back from that is really just turning their back from reality, what is, rather than what they want. That being said, we do have a higher brain, and we can choose to be slapped and not slap back, and that sort of thing. But when you look at, I was in my research of trying to understand the conflict, It's this epicenter of land and history and culture that kind of both and religion, but it's the land, it's the space. Because at first I go, well, like Jesus, excuse me, not no pun intended, but the Israelis in the 40s after the Holocaust, with the British endorsement, because the British imperialism was kind of winding down, and I think one of their last movements was to basically bestow Israel as the land for the Jews to establish finally their own country and nation state or whatever. But clearly they just picked like a hot spot, a controversial hot spot, and just by just. And again, I don't know any of the nuance that happened, any of the infighting that happened down there, but just in summary. So I've, not trying to offend anybody, and I'm not, but it's just, my first reaction was like, well, Jesus, you guys, why don't you just pick a different place that's like not as hot, and with the same square footage, and you can go out to Kansas and gobble up some land, or Chile or Brazil, or the South American desert or something. Like there's like lots of untouched land that you might be able to occupy, but then there's the feeling of they both have a culture and history there, So then I start thinking like, well, I mean, if you kind of understand that, like, okay, well, this is animalistic behavior, that it's like territory. It's a territorial fight. You know what I mean? It's like they were moving in. It was a concentration of moving in, and the Palestinians, were rejecting that. And again, I'm summarizing because I know that there was. Land is being taken by force at times, and people are moved by force. So there's a lot of force being applied there. I mean, without a doubt, like the murdering of innocents is never okay. So so that certainly goes without saying. But yeah, I don't know.
It is always an escalation, and you wonder. Yes, we are animals, but you wonder if, because each generation does get a little less primitive, you hope that at some point figure out how to do less than that.
I mean, you think that we get less primitive, though, but I mean, there's a lot of violence here in our own country. There's a lot, and I guess we're saying this out without stats, so it's like we don't have any data. Right. We don't have any data points, so maybe it actually is getting less primitive. Maybe we are getting, certainly that's.
You have to take the ultra wide picture,
right?
Not necessarily a generational thing.
Yeah, but then the other thing too is when you look at when there's in history, whenever there's been a mass movement of people, I mean, it's always with conflict and loss, and you've got this mass migration crashing against the southern U.S. border, for example. I mean, you have early Europeans taking the land from the Native Americans. I mean, just land movement all the time. So what's happening there almost seems like, yeah, this is what happens. This is what happens, and the only way it seems that the violence largely subsides is when the losing culture is essentially overwritten.
Right.
And nobody wants to see that happen. Nobody wants to see the smaller being overwritten by the larger. But it just seems like that's the only way that's
default, yeah.
It's the only way. And then me saying that is not what I want. It's just saying like that's just staring at what appears to be the reality of the scenario. So it's like they can keep needling each other, for decades and decades and decades, and or I mean, it almost seems like Israel is like at that point today or now where they're about to overwrite the smaller party, kind of. Wholesale,
That's such a technology term, just to overwrite them, right?
Well, this is financial technology insights, right?
Yeah, I know. But Yeah, it isn't. I remember I was watching something. It was one of these Lex interviews, one of these 3 hours, and he asked the guy what role violence had taken, and the idea that the Neanderthals and the Homo sapiens actually ended up kind of taking over that branch, whereas the Neanderthals were more aggressive, say more primitive type of thing, the way they study their brains and whatever. And he was talking about this study that this Russian guy had done a long time ago, where he was trying to domesticate different species who weren't normally domesticated, and he was doing that by reversing the course of nature. So let's say there's 2 tigers, and one is more aggressive, stronger, more alpha, and less receptive to outside families of tigers coming in. So in the normal wild, the more aggressive tiger or whatever would obviously take over and be the victor and have more babies, and that's how this. So he was reversing the course of that by, when he figured out that scenario, he would kill off the more aggressive one and that was his idea behind domestication. And what he was
he would terminate the bloodline of the aggressive candidate.
Right. Yeah. So alpha and beta is taking the beta, and then it slowly, over the course of time, that species would become more domesticated and more friendly, and that was kind of his study. And then they studied the shape of the brain and the formation of the face, and they found that mirrored the difference between the Neanderthal branch and the Homo sapien branch. And what was odd about that point in time is it was the Homo sapien branch that was more caring, more nurturing, and more beta, but they ended up being the more dominant, and the Neanderthals ended up kind of going away or merging or sort of blending together. So he was going down this path of ultra big picture that each generation does get. Softer is not the right word, but less aggressive, less whatever, because we as a culture have pushed that away, right? Like we know as a culture, if somebody walks into a restaurant and says, "All this food is mine, I'm eating all this food," and just starts pulling it, that's kind of ostracized in society, and that won't reproduce at the level of the normal people or whatever. So therefore, as a society, we do get less aggressive. As a species, we do get less aggressive, less kind of warlike over time. So I relate back to that every time there's one of these kind of war things, and then somebody gets hit, and then the other one's got to hit back harder, and then he did this and he did that, and it just sounds so like going backwards or whatever. And it all ties into raising kids and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, with so many actors and so many victims, I mean, it's trite for me to say this, but there's just every individual, and then every family, and every micro community, and every town, and every village, and every what do they call it? Anyways, it's when there's when you've been wronged by another group, it's so hard to be like, okay, well, we'll take it on the chin here for the greater good.
Right.
I'm completely sympathetic to anybody who wants to be violent in the defense of their home. Just in that summary, I mean, in that basic thought, I feel like I would take the same position, no matter how evolved I was, but I feel like that's always just going to always be the case, so
it's very difficult to put somebody else's self-interest. There's always a level at which you're willing to put that group's self-interest ahead of another.
And how do you not, the Israelis, it seems, again, I don't know any of the nuance, but it seems that in 1940 they're like, well, let's just start a mass migration to this place where other people were occupying, so in that basic sentence, it seems like they are the aggressor, or the belligerent party. And personally, in my experiences, unfortunately, I've been faced with, and this is in terms of litigation and that I've had to deal with. When you're faced with a belligerent party that just is only there to destroy you, there's only it's only a black or white situation. You either kill or get killed, and it's only
right.
You know what I mean? It's only in the face of a belligerent party who thinks, and for whatever the reasons why, that they think that they're just going to destroy you, and unfortunately, again, to overshare, I've had, both in business and in life, belligerent actors that have, wanted to destroy me. And, after, you can say, like, let's work together, let's work together, let's work together, let's work together. But when they're just hell bent on destroying you, which is,
does happen.
It does happen. There's nothing that you can pack your shit and run away, and that's sometimes an option, but sometimes it's not. I don't know.
Yeah. We look for the silver lining, and you hope maybe. When you look at this stuff on a global scale, and everybody's looking in on this one particular area, which is not that big of an area, right? It's 25 miles long, area, but you just hope that we start to look at the ridiculousness of this, and those groups that are, that are looking to just win at all costs. You hope that the light is shined on them, and there's enough voice that tells them that that's not okay. And you don't get to do that anymore. And less and less people support those over time. Again, it's hard to look at that in a lifetime span or even a couple generations, but you hope that we're eventually getting to that point. But when we probably do, that's when we'll be attacked by the aliens, and then that's when we'll all have to come together.
Yeah, once Earth gets its shit together, the aliens will
Wouldn't that just be our
arrive
luck?
and say, we're going to live here now. And so now will we be facing a belligerent invader?
Yeah. Or probably once we get everything resolved here, we become the belligerent invader, right?
I mean, right? I mean, that's exactly my earlier point, is that this is just kind of nature doing what nature does in a way,
Yeah.
It's both kind of fundamental and complex at the same time.
Yeah. Fun stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Finance and technology news.
So yeah, there we go. That we wanted to pay respect to what was going on in the region. And let me do a little more homework here, or a little more housekeeping. Brian and I normally talk finance and technology. We try to tie it into business. We both have businesses and business interests in the respective area. Brian's our finance guy. I'm the technology guy. Although we try to talk about each other's thing as much as we can. Today we're trying a new format where we just cut out the person. We used to talk. You and I would chit chat for the first 20 minutes of the show, and we're trying to do that pre-record. So you and I caught up before we hit record. And so now we are going to just kind of talk about what's going on in the news, what kind of headlines are happening, what kind of things are happening. So it's kind of a dull week for me. What's going on in finance?
I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I do think this does kind of tie into everything that we're going through, and the censorship, the ability of technology companies to kind of control this information. I'm at the point where it's like I would rather have a completely open model where almost nothing gets censored, rather than to have somebody try to pick and choose which. I can understand if it's certainly really like explicit or violent content. It needs to be flagged, and people need to be maybe have an opportunity to opt out of that. But that was a big issue even before all of this Palestinian terror attack and all that type of stuff. But what are your thoughts on the censorship, and if you could wave a magic wand and fix it, what would it be?
I mean, I'm a libertarian freedom fighter, so I don't believe anything should be censored, and that comes with a huge qualifier, of course. I believe in free market principles and functions. So if you have somebody posting objectionable content, you can unfollow that person. The algorithm can start to learn that you don't want to see images of dead babies on streets, and that it's such a hot topic, but like I don't really care, quite frankly. I'm just not. I don't. The very first tenet of our country is freedom of speech. Mm-hmm. So when you start shaping that and curbing that, and again, it's I get that it's always in with the idea of safety and well-being,
good intentions.
Like all rules and laws and controls, it always comes from from a good place. It's like we don't want people to get hurt, but freedom of speech and censorship, I think, is so important to our society. So important. I mean, right now you can't go to a lot of countries, China, India, Russia. You cannot speak ill of your government. Mm-hmm. I mean, how could like that? That is so bizarre, and I think that's what separates us from the rest. And I mean, free speech is so important. So yes, people.
The thing that would concern me the most is when you get these big companies and the government is telling them to exclude certain content. They're not equipped to do that. They've proven that they're not. They don't have the ability to do that. So I would rather filter out the information myself rather than have Meta.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you an example. Like I stopped using TikTok when my wife brought TikTok into the house, and it was like a lot of funny videos mixed in early. I don't know if this happened to you, but my experience early with TikTok 3-4 years ago or whatever was people were posting what I call gore porn. Mm-hmm. This is a term that I feel like I've coined, but it's like people like have these horrific videos and images that they post, and then they go like, repost this if you support fighting against child abuse. You know what I mean? And what they're doing is they then perpetuate what I call the gore porn in the name of like the calling. You know what I mean? Like, this is horrible. Repost this if you support not doing this. You know what I mean? Right. And I feel like TikTok was like, there'd be funny, and then there would be like, I don't know, somebody getting like really injured, like violently injured or something. And that just like, I can't stomach that. I don't want any part of it. So I just stopped using the platform. Right. It wasn't until 2 years later or something that my wife was like laughing her ass off on the couch next to me, every night or whatever. And she's like, it's on, check out this TikTok feed or whatever that I'm on. I'm like, no, I don't want to watch that because of that stuff. And she's like, no, they sorted that out. It's all gone. And so they've earned my trust back. So now I don't feel like if I open TikTok, I'm going to be exposed to the content that I'm not comfortable with. But I don't know if they've removed the content or if they just got better at kind of curating it for me,
I know my wife is pretty good about when she gets something like that, she flags it as like, I don't want to see it or whatever. Like, so she's submitting it to me. I just scroll past it or whatever. But it's definitely the social media's their goal is to take you down these rabbit holes and give you something that's going to give you a reaction. So I think especially early on, they're serving this stuff up to you, and they're like, "Ooh, let's see if he likes this or spends time on this." No, okay, well, we'll try to get it in another couple weeks or whatever. But
Right.
Yeah, I did definitely notice they took me down certain places that I didn't want to go. So I definitely use it a little bit less and less than I used to. I'll just go if my wife will share some funny stuff with me. At least now I'm seeing the stuff that she sends me, and she's seeing the stuff I'm seeing, but it's worked against us because now she'll be like, "Oh, I already saw that. I already saw that. I already saw that." So the couple of videos that I do see and send her, she's already seen them. But for me, or like I've been watching some of like the running stuff or some of the fitness stuff, but then they take you to the extreme end of that. So I end up with a bunch of like college girls in their booty shorts doing like it's like, no, that's not, just because I followed a couple runners, they think that I'm onto this type of thing and all that kind of stuff.
It is really funny how the algorithm will grab the wheel and take you down. I have the girls. My YouTube account is on the TV, and the girls were watching some cheer videos. Some of these kids are doing some like crazy cheer moves, and the girls both are doing cheerleading and gymnastics now. And so now, like on my YouTube on my phone is like these talking about booty shorts, like these they're adult competitors because they're all tattooed, and I think they're all like in college or whatever. But I'm like, I don't want to see this. And then on Instagram, I started golfing this summer again after a 10-year break from it, and now I'm on my Instagram. It's like nothing but like ridiculous and hilarious golf shots,
Yeah.
So what about the thing with censorship is, at what level can we as a people, and the government just is we the people, right? So at what level can we the people specifically or intentionally try to shape our values? Because I'm sitting here like taking this hard line on there should be no censorship, right? But if there was zero censorship, there are concepts where self-affirming biases occur. And do you know where I'm going with that? Where like maybe like there is a tendency for our human nature to consume the negative or the bombastic. And so like if everybody's sitting at home in their private time and they're glowing of their phones off their faces, or just like, and they're just consuming this negative, abusive content, which like my wife and all of her girlfriends, they watch all of these like horrific Netflix documentary of like husbands killing wives and wives killing husbands and dads killing, like all of these and they're just so engaged in it. And then I kind of look at my friends in the community and stuff.
And then they have bad dreams, and then they blame you.
But they're just talking about, there's just this content I mean, listen, I remember Lifetime original movies in the 90s, like I remember that stuff. So that content exists, and like you get pulled into it, so without the censorship, if there's no like shaping of the global content feed or quality or standard, maybe the country, our community, our culture would devolve, maybe go back to the Neanderthal or something like that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be a lame answer, but it's I think it goes back to just education and the home and personal responsibility, which everybody hates.
But education really is synonymous with indoctrination, isn't it?
It can be, but I'm talking about it at the lowest of levels, the kindergarten and that kind of stuff.
Early indoctrination.
Early indoctrination. Yeah. But like we used to watch like Law and Order and SUV, and then just as I guess probably more around when our son was born, whatever. But eventually we got to the point where we're like, that's not healthy to watch that kind of stuff. Like it's just not. And I think it's a problem too in the binge world too. Because if you go back to like let's say Sopranos days or something, I was a big Sopranos fan, but you'd watch it, be Sunday night. Okay, that's it. And then you do whatever and go to bed. But having the ability to watch like 7 or 8 episodes of that is
Take
not,
Monday off and finish the season.
yeah, but like that stuff's not healthy to watch. Like, one of those shows will change your mindset. Absolutely. You got to get up, you got to walk, you got to you got to get out of the house, you got to call your mom, you got to do something. So to watch like 3 or 4 of those shows, that definitely will shape you. So I think it's just stepping away from that, and maybe if more people start to recognize that and understand that. I think it is cyclical too. I mean, you're going to have a group of kids coming through now who are used to seeing their parents' heads down and the top of their phone. They're not going to want to do that, So you're going to get the backlash.
That's true.
Just like you had with Facebook. I mean, the next generation of kids is like, oh, I don't want to go on Facebook. It's just a bunch of old people arguing about politics and stuff. So it becomes uncool to do that thing, So you're going to have kids that are going to be like, oh yeah, on Sundays my parents would just binge watch Game of Thrones or something, and I was over in the corner, doing whatever, coloring.
So I'm going to go outside and play with my kids or something.
Yeah. You will get snapped back in the other direction. You'll get some who go through that and say, well, that's just the way it's supposed to be, right? You get in that cycle of certain things. But there's also the snapback portion of it too. So as much as we can sort of amplify that and encourage that, but I mean, there's definitely a lot of, even when you look at some of the younger stuff on social media, say the college kids or recent graduates, it's all way more about experiences than it is stuff. I mean, we've talked about our collections of things and stuff that we used to have like in the house when we were younger, but that's what you did. You accumulated things, and now the next generation is like, I've cleaned out too many houses of people's crap from grandparents and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of that stuff is about experiences. So you do get sort of the snapback in the other direction. Whether it's smaller homes or instead of that 4,000 square foot McMansion or whatever, we're going to have the smaller house and travel more.
Right.
So I do think you do sort of get that generational sort of snapback stuff. So from a content perspective, hopefully that'll be amplified to higher quality stuff.
So let me switch gears to tech. There's not much going on in the tech news. I did read something that I thought was kind of interesting, and it will be my only tech article for the day. And then if you have something on the finance side of the house, we'll end with that. We're going to have a shorter show today. The article that I read, which is getting picked up in a number of headlines, which you can find on your favorite news publication, but basically it looks like Apple. Have you ever opened up a computer, a phone? You're an Android user. I'm an iPhone user. Have you ever opened up a new electronic device like that with an operating system, and then the first thing you had to do was a half day of updates?
Yes. Yeah.
So Apple, according to a number of outlets, Apple will be able to update iPhones while they're still in the box. I thought that was kind
I like that.
Go ahead.
So where that hits me a little bit, although I was sort of after this generation, but there's a whole group of kids who would get these PlayStation or Xboxes on Christmas and have to go through like a day's worth of updates. So remember when that was like a thing? You had all these parents who were opening these and setting them up, and they'd have to like rebox them and rewrap them and whatever, because these kids would get them and have to go through all these updates and stuff. So
yeah, exactly.
I think about that at Christmas, so that's pretty cool that they won't have to go through all that.
Yeah. So that's all that's the only tech news I thought was interesting. I don't know what else is going on that I want to mention, but figure I'd make my contribution for the day.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That is a good one. Microsoft finished their deal of Activision. That's 20 months in the making. So there was concern both here and abroad. Those are big franchises that Activision have. Call of Duty, Crash Bandicoot was them, some other gaming stuff. But the idea was if you have the console controlling too much of the content, and some of these games are available across multiple systems. So the fear was, from an antitrust standpoint, is Well, if Microsoft is making the machine and essentially all the software, then the software, you're going to have to buy 2 or 3 different machines to get all the different games that you want. But it ended up closing, and that was a $69 billion deal. So tying back to the whole video game thing and all that, that was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that's right. I guess I should have mentioned that. The reason I didn't was because it's not. You and I have a business bent to our show, and I didn't think that our business viewers would be too interested in that. But that is true. That's a pretty big deal. Call of Duty is the flagship, I guess, of product of Activision, and it was multi-platform. You could get on PC, Nintendo, PlayStation, Microsoft. So Microsoft did acquire Activision, and of course the fear in the market is, once Microsoft buys Call of Duty, they'll stop producing it for PlayStation and the others. And yeah, it's very true. It's very possible that they do, but this is again an intersection where I think the regulation and the market just don't understand each other. It feels unfair as a PlayStation owner saying, like, they shouldn't stop, Microsoft shouldn't be allowed to buy Activision, otherwise I won't get my Call of Duty. But like, you're not entitled to have Call of Duty on your PlayStation. You're just not entitled. And to have Dick Blumenthal, our senator here in Connecticut, who's just made a career out of attacking corporations, say that like Microsoft shouldn't be allowed to buy Activision because they're going to stop making a video game on PlayStation. Like it just reminds me of. Did you ever see like in high school parents who got a little too involved in their kids' social dynamics?
Oh, sure.
It just feels like that. It's like, don't forget, if Microsoft stops. Maybe Call of Duty's success is because it was on so many different platforms. And if the powers that be at Microsoft want to spend $69 billion and make Call of Duty an exclusive Microsoft license, maybe Call of Duty will be on a steady decline after that. Maybe it'll no longer be the popular product. I mean, Fortnite, Minecraft, Roblox, these games are all multi-platform games. That's why they're mega games, So, if Microsoft wants to take this massive property and just constrain it to their own property, they should be able to do that. And you know what? I don't think Richard Blumenthal needs to get involved in that dispute.
I know it gets into the whataboutism and that kind of stuff when people say, well, don't they have anything else to worry about? You hear that a lot. But yeah, it makes sense for in this world where everything is so interconnected. It's not just a video game. They make movies off of video games. They make apparel. They make smaller games. They make people are running Twitch platforms. They have competitions on all this stuff. They have these enormous conventions where they have these tournaments and sell out arenas for this kind of stuff. So if you're trying to sell your game, you want to have that on multiple platforms.
As soon as you remember the antitrust suit against Microsoft in the 90s?
Yeah.
So that was about them bundling Internet Explorer, their web browser, on Windows, which put Netscape out of business or largely affected Netscape, right? Well, as soon as Netscape became irrelevant in the mid to late 90s, Microsoft basically stopped innovating the web browser. Right. But then the European Union and the DOJ, I believe, engaged Microsoft in like a 10-year legal battle over this. And in that time, in the mid to halfway point, Netscape re-innovated and launched the Firefox web browser. Or they launched Mozilla, and Mozilla became Firefox. And then all of a sudden, and then Firefox became Chrome. So that and now nobody wants to use Internet Explorer. So right. The market shows time and time again that when a monopoly occurs, it largely stops innovating. And there is a period of time where competition is squelched to a certain degree. But when that innovation drought starts to occur, then you have these new sprouts and come up, and they become mega competitors and things. And you see that over and over and over again. MySpace was early to social media. They couldn't innovate, and then you've got Facebook, and they, you know what I mean, and they're not innovating. So then you have these Snapchats, and Windows is really like still a dominant player, but Mac and Apple have now I think that upwards of 20 to 30% market share, and it's just because of the innovation. So I don't know. These regulators, they're always fighting a last year battle, and they're just trying to sell their brand on it, and I just think it's nonsense. And what it does is it creates this dense landscape of regulation and bureaucracy that just makes everything kind of harder anyways. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I think a good example of that, and we've had a bunch of these where the court cases and the discussion about them has taken so long that the market's kind of fixed itself. We had that issue with cloud stuff, and everybody's complaining about Amazon and the type of the way they treat their sellers and their dominant place in the marketplace. And
Amazon's a perfect example. I guarantee that in a 10-year period, Amazon will be pushed aside by some major competitor.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about Temu, who's been getting a lot of press, and you see their ads everywhere, and they're getting a ton of downloads on their app. Now they're like Amazon in the early years. They're losing a ton of money. They're selling products at losses. They're doing anything to gain customers and market share. But I think Amazon's a place right for some disruption. So it's nice to kind of see I don't know if Temu's the Amazon killer. Have you ever used Temu or bought anything off Temu?
No, I've never even heard of it.
Really? Yeah, I mean, they're the number 2 retailer. They're ahead of more stuff on eBay. They're just an enormous Chinese company that's taken.
Can you spell it? Temo?
Temu.
Oh, Temu.
Yeah. And they're famous for their silly ads of like selling drones that are $30 or selling them for $6, or you can get this for a matter of pennies or whatever. But they're using the whole idea of just giving a market share away to giving products away to gain market share, fill up their customer database.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And this is domestic U.S. It looks like.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. I mean, either way, I mean, it's. I don't know. Again, the libertarian in me says like the laws rarely solve the problems they intend to solve. I mean, my 15-year-old Pathfinder is now 220,000 miles. Like it's inevitable that I'm due for a new car. So I'm just starting to look at what I'm going to be looking to get. I don't really want a crossover. I definitely don't want a sedan. I don't want a crossover really, but practically speaking, I'm kind of now starting to look at maybe the Model Y, the Tesla Model Y, because I really do want to go electric. Knowing that they're all going to the Tesla connector, but the Rivian, the Ford, and all the other electrics on the market now still have the CCS connector. I'm like, well, I don't want to get a car that's going to, I've owned this thing for the last 15 years, you know what I mean? And I don't know if I'm going to own the next one for the 15 years, but I may, and I don't want, this old connector. So practically I'm looking at maybe the Model Y, but you can't buy one in Connecticut because of the stupid dealership law. You know about that?
Yeah. No direct business. You gotta go through the dealership.
Yeah, the OEM the manufacturer of a car cannot sell direct to consumer, and it's total bullshit. It's anti-competitive. I mean, it comes from the idea of like a consumer spends a significant amount of their income on this one purchase, and it should have a robust enough support network to keep that thing going. But all that does is just eliminates choice and free will of the consumer. I mean, you should just be able to buy what you want to buy.
Right, and it adds costs and complexities and a layer of middleman or middle person that's not necessarily
It certainly makes it harder for a new car company to try to enter the market, to bring in more competition to existing, which competition is healthy for the consumer. So it's just,
but not healthy for legacy business, regulatory capture, right?
Right. I saw a YouTuber make a really great case that regulation really only helps the incumbent. And you'll see the incumbent is always the one endorsing the regulation, and oftentimes their lobbyists are the ones who are writing the regulation to put under the pen of regulators. So it's
pull up the ladder behind you, right?
Yeah.
Is there a last question? Is there a particular feature or a particular something you're waiting for to get the Tesla, or is there just waiting for your?
I really don't like the form factor of the Tesla.
Okay.
I really don't want. I have a 2008 Pathfinder, which is the last body year that it was like a full framed SUV. In 2013-14, they turned it into a unibody, and turned it into basically a large crossover like the Nissan Murano or I don't know what else. But the RAV4 is really, do you know what a RAV4, not a RAV4, the Highlander?
Okay.
Not the RAV4, it's the Highlander, I think, or the 4Runner.
Okay.
I think it's the 4Runner. Hang on, is it a 4Runner? Yeah, the 4Runner is still a full-framed SUV style. If I don't want to do a screen share, but my Pathfinder is like the 4Runner still is. But so I just don't like a crossover. I don't like a unibody. I want something that feels like it's lifted off the ground a little bit. I don't like buying traditional domestics. So I don't want like a Tahoe. I don't want a Chevy or like the Durango, I think, is the Dodge. Like I'm not. I even think they made that into a unibody or something. So that's why I haven't gone with a Tesla, is because I don't want a sedan, which is the Model 3 or the S. I'm not going to spend $100,000 on anything anyways. So the S and the X are out. So that really leaves the Model Y, and it's I think 3 inches taller than the Model 3, which but it's a crossover, and it's not really how I envision myself. And then there's the Rivian R1S, but again, that's like an $80,000. If I think you fully equipped, you're close to 100, if not 100 for it. So I don't know.
So I don't know. Keep it for 12 years, you get your money for it.
Yeah, maybe. But there's something, I don't know. It just feels like a mortgage that I'm. I don't want a mortgage on my car. You know what I mean?
No, I hear you. So, all right, so we'll go back again next Tuesday, and
what's the format? I feel like I'm in Boston tomorrow for a conference. That's actually another reason why I think we're doing today is Monday. Next week, yes, next Tuesday looks good, the 24th. So we'll be back on track. I'm kind of liking this new format. Hopefully, the news cycle will give us something to talk about. So we'll lead into, so there's Finance and Technology Insights. We do have a YouTube. We're on, Brian uploads this to your favorite podcatcher. And we do have a Facebook group as well. Traditionally, we would kind of do some chit chat during the beginning, and then we kind of lead into what's going on in our respective business spaces, and then we would talk about what's going on in the news. I think we're going to abridge that a little bit. We're going to get our chit chat done ahead of time, and then we'll get right into what's kind of happening. Sound good? Sounds good.
All right. Sounds good.
We'll see you next week.